Welcome to another special book overview episode of our Mandatory Mental Liberation series, produced by Baba Jelani Bomani Dembe, founder of Majestic Mind Matters University. I'm your royal narrator, Queen Magical Melanin, for this new book overview episode titled, White Women, Everything You Already Know About Your Own Racism and How to Do Better, by Regina Jackson. The necessity of the Mandatory Mental Liberation series at Majestic Mind Matters University lies in our focus on serving our melanin-rich culture communities. By addressing the importance of knowledge of self to produce greater self-awareness and advocating for our mental liberation, but especially for our precious melanin-rich culture children, our messages aims to combat the enduring effects of generational mental enslavement stemming from the historical trauma of the chattel enslavement of the ancestors. Our initiative seeks to empower us to break free from these harmful and unfavorable legacies and cultivate a deep-rooted sense of self-identity and unwavering resilience. In this special episode, if the term Black, African American, marginalized, or people of color is used in reference to our melanin-rich culture people, it is for the sole purpose of understanding the importance of expressing the mindset of global society for that time period in history, compared to our well-informed melanin-rich culture people mindsets today. Our melanin-rich culture people who are reading more extensively and our melanin-rich culture people that stay on the go and who actively listen to and subscribe and share podcast links, just like these produced by Baba Jelani Bomani Dembe, the founder of Majestic Mind Matters University in the Mandatory Mental Liberation series messages. With me, Queen Magical Melanin, your royal narrator, for our open-minded melanin-rich culture. People who are seeking more understanding and greater knowledge of self for true uplifting spiritual empowerment. In her groundbreaking book, White Women, Everything You Already Know About Your Own Racism and How to Do Better, Regina Jackson delves deep into the often overlooked issue of racism among white women in society. Drawing upon her own experiences as a Black woman and years of research in the field of social justice, Regina Jackson fearlessly sheds light on the implicit biases and privilege that many white women possess. She provides a roadmap for self-reflection and growth towards becoming better allies in the fight against racism. From the very beginning of the book, Regina Jackson sets the tone for a critical examination of how white women have historically benefited from perpetuated systems of oppression. She addresses uncomfortable truths about the role that white women played in upholding chattel enslavement of the ancestors, segregation, and other forms of racial discrimination. Through powerful anecdotes and case studies, she compels readers to confront their own complicity in these systems and challenges them to do better. One key concept that Regina Jackson explores is the idea of white fragility, the tendency for white women to become defensive or uncomfortable when confronted with their own racism. By unpacking the roots of white fragility and providing practical strategies for overcoming it, Regina Jackson encourages readers to engage in honest and meaningful dialogue about race. She empowers white women to address their biases head-on and to strive towards understanding and dismantling their privilege. Regina Jackson, in her exploration of the concept of white fragility, delves deep into the uncomfortable truth of how white women often react defensively when confronted with their own racism. This tendency to become defensive or uncomfortable, Regina Jackson argues, stems from a fear of acknowledging and addressing one's own biases and privilege. By unpacking the roots of white fragility and offering practical strategies for overcoming it, Regina Jackson seeks to empower readers, particularly white women, to engage in honest and meaningful dialogue about race and to work towards understanding and dismantling their white privilege. One of the key aspects of white fragility that Regina Jackson addresses is the discomfort that arises from being faced with one's own biases and privilege. White women are socialized within a society that privileges whiteness and perpetuates racial inequalities. However, many white women may not be consciously aware of the ways in which they benefit from this system of privilege. When confronted with their own racist beliefs or actions, they may feel a sense of guilt, shame, or defensiveness. This discomfort, Regina Jackson argues, is a form of fragility, a fragile and defensive response to challenging one's own worldview and identity. In order to address white fragility and move towards genuine anti-racism, Regina Jackson offers practical strategies for white women to engage in self-reflection and actively work towards dismantling their white privilege. One key strategy is to acknowledge and take responsibility for one's own biases and privilege. This requires white women to reflect on their own experiences and beliefs, and to recognize the ways in which they have benefited from systemic racism. By acknowledging their own privilege, white women can begin to challenge their own assumptions and behaviors, and work towards becoming better allies in the fight against racism. Another important strategy that Regina Jackson highlights is the importance of engaging in dialogue and listening to the experiences of melanin-rich culture people. By actively listening to the experiences and perspectives of marginalized communities, white women can gain a deeper understanding of the impact of racism and privilege. This requires white women to be open to criticism, to ask questions, and to educate themselves on issues of race and racism. By actively engaging in dialogue and learning from others, white women can begin to challenge their own biases and work towards building a more inclusive and equitable society for us as well. Ultimately, Regina Jackson's exploration of white fragility serves as a call to action for white women to confront their own biases and privilege, and to work towards becoming better allies in the fight against racism. By unpacking the roots of white fragility and offering practical strategies for overcoming it, Regina Jackson empowers readers to engage in honest and meaningful dialogue about race, and to strive towards understanding and dismantling their white privilege. In doing so, white women can play a critical role in creating a more just and equitable society for us as well. Another central theme in Regina Jackson's work is the concept of intersectionality, the interconnected nature of different forms of oppression. She emphasizes that racism cannot be understood in isolation from other forms of discrimination, such as sexism, classism, and homophobia. By urging white women to acknowledge their own white privilege and how it intersects with other identities, Regina Jackson challenges readers to examine their own biases and prejudices in order to become effective allies to our marginalized communities. Through powerful examples and narratives, Regina Jackson illustrates how white women can seemingly unintentionally perpetuate racism through their actions, attitudes, and beliefs. She calls upon readers to step outside of their comfort zones and actively listen to the voices and experiences of marginalized individuals. By practicing empathy, humility, and self-reflection, white women can begin the work of dismantling oppressive systems and advocating for social justice. Regina Jackson challenges white women to confront their own biases and complicity in systems of oppression in her book by asking them to reflect on their privilege and the ways in which they benefit from systems of oppression. She urges white women to actively engage in conversations about race and to educate themselves on the history of racism in order to better understand the impact it has on marginalized communities. Ultimately, Regina Jackson's work serves as a powerful call to action for white women to confront their privilege and biases. By actively engaging in self-reflection, dialogue, and collective action, white women can work towards creating a more inclusive and just society for us as well. White Women, Everything You Already Know About Your Own Racism and How to Do Better is an essential read for anyone committed to dismantling racist structures and striving towards equality and justice for us as well. Through understanding intersectionality, acknowledging privilege, and engaging in collective action, white women have the potential to be powerful allies in the fight against racism and oppression. Regina Jackson is a prominent advocate for racial justice and equality, particularly focusing on the role that white women can play in addressing systemic racism. Her message is clear: white women must actively engage in conversations about race and privilege in order to promote understanding, empathy, and ultimately dismantle the systems that perpetuate inequality. One of the key aspects of Regina Jackson's approach is the emphasis on listening, learning, and reflecting. She encourages white women to create safe spaces where honest and open discussions can take place, allowing for questions to be asked and assumptions to be challenged. By actively listening to the experiences and perspectives of melanin-rich culture people, white women can begin to understand the ways in which their own biases and privilege shape their interactions with the world around them. Jackson also stresses the importance of educating oneself on the history and impact of racism. By learning about the ways in which racism has shaped society and continues to manifest in various institutions, white women can begin to understand their own role in perpetuating these systems. This knowledge can serve as a catalyst for change, pushing white women to challenge the status quo and work towards creating a more equitable and just society for us as well. Furthermore, Regina Jackson advocates for white women to use their white privilege and platforms to amplify the voices of our melanin-rich culture people. This can take many forms, from advocating for change within their own communities and workplaces to actively working towards dismantling oppressive systems. By using their own positions of power and influence, white women can help to create space for marginalized voices to be heard and uplifted. In promoting these strategies, Regina Jackson believes that white women can contribute to the larger movement for racial justice and equality. By actively engaging in conversations about race and privilege, they can help to promote understanding and empathy, fostering a sense of unity and solidarity across racial lines. This work is crucial in challenging the systems of oppression that have long marginalized our communities and in working towards a more just and equitable society for all. In conclusion, Regina Jackson's message is one of empowerment and responsibility. She challenges white women to confront their own biases, educate themselves on the impact of racism, and use their privilege to advocate for change. By creating safe spaces for dialogue and actively engaging in conversations about race and privilege, white women can take meaningful steps towards dismantling systemic racism and building a more inclusive and equitable society. In doing so, they can join in the larger movement for racial justice, contributing their voices and actions to the fight for equality and liberation for us as well. I'm your royal narrator, Queen Magical Melanin. We trust that you have expanded your understanding through the insights shared by Baba Jelani Bumani Dembe, founder of Majestic Mind Matters University, in our Mandatory Mental Liberation Series book overview message titled, White Women, Everything You Already Know About Your Own Racism and How to Do Better, by Regina Jackson. Remember this, it is essential to honor the ancestors. We have a unique connection to the ancestors. They endured many unwarranted struggles, preserved our melanin-rich culture, and passed down invaluable wisdom through many generations. By honoring the ancestors, we pay honorable tribute to our roots and draw great strength and much-needed inspiration from the unwavering resilience and royal legacy that has paved the way for our present and future generations. Ancestral reverence is a powerful way for us to continually uphold our own melanin-rich identity, heritage, and cultural legacy. Here is an ancient Alkebulan proverb to keep in mind. If you think you are too small to make a difference, you have not spent the night with a mosquito. Remember this as well, whenever you are in the presence of anyone, saying, they don't see color, it actually means they don't see you. As a member of our melanin-rich culture, you must strive for knowledge of self for greater personal awareness. Always treat yourself kindly and seek to live a totally awesome and gloriously fulfilling melanin-rich culture life. So, like, subscribe, and share this very special melanin-rich culture link with everyone that you care about and that really cares about you and all of yours as well, and thank you for listening. Ashe.